Hey, everybody, it's Chris Elmore with another edition of the Service Contractor Radio Show brought to you by Service Excellence Training, where we turn learning into earning. This week on the podcast, my sidekick, Christopher Kalen Loudermilk, is back.
I'm Batman, you're Robin.
And we are going to be talking about prescriptions. Stay tuned. Welcome back, sidekick.
Thank you, Robin. I'm Batman.
You're not Batman.
I'm Batman.
Number one, Batman's on time. I'll just leave that there.
I'm a late Batman.
Yes, you are a late Batman and a late bloomer. Look, I've got this.
A tardy Batman.
If you're watching the video, you can see that I have got the Service Excellence logo perfectly placed behind me, so it looks like I have a laurel wreath on my head and a halo.
And a scroll.
And a scroll on top of my head.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's strategic. Strategery, yes.
As W would say.
Okay, so we normally chit-chat for 5 or 10 minutes beforehand, and I think today we're going to do it for longer. Just kidding.
I like chit-chat.
Okay, we'll chit-chat a little bit. So
here's my favorite. Trump State of the Union. He mentioned the Alamo and then said, remember the Alamo. Texas, America.
Well, did you hear the chants of USA, USA?
Yes.
And everybody's giving him crap for the stuff he did during the speeches being reality TV stuff. I don't know. Whether you like Trump or not, I mean, you reunite a family after 7 months deployment. That's pretty cool, right?
Agreed. And here's a fun fact. One of the best workouts I ever did, because I made a commitment at the very beginning, I was going to stand when everybody stood. So it was like doing wall sits. Every time they stood up and clapped, I stood up, got off my couch, and then when they started screaming.
Wait. So your workout was standing up?
And sitting down. Repeatedly.
Okay.
But hey, when they started chanting USA, screaming at my house. USA!
That's right.
USA!
But it was pretty cool. And I'm not commenting. I'm not commenting on your politics. Whatever. But what's the other big news in Waco, Texas today?
Snow.
It snowed in Waco, Texas.
I built a snowman. So Weller,
your dog,
yes, the little English Cocker Spaniel,
mm-hmm.
went ballistic. Had the best round of zoomies. No, he's just zooming and rolling.
Well, he wasn't eating the snow?
No.
I see Pappy going out and just snapping at the snow.
Pappy just looks at it very smugly.
No, I'm not going out. But yeah, I mean, you can still see it across the street on the neighbors' houses where the sun hasn't hit yet. But I reckon there was probably an inch on my table in the backyard.
And we get it, every 5 or 6 years?
I've lived here since 2004, and I remember 2 snows.
Thank you, Storm.
One was in December around Christmas. I remember that.
I was gone.
If it wasn't on Christmas, it might have been on Christmas, but it was less than this.
Yeah.
My kids managed to build a snowman out of. I think they went into all the neighbors' yards.
Was it this big?
It was about that big. So they did build a snowman. And then I remember in April, and the only reason I remember this particular date is because we picked up my dog, which has been, 15 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
No, 13 years ago, because she was 2007. It snowed on April 7th, 2007.
Carry the 9.
Nope, that's it.
Oh.
Because that's the day we picked up our dog that year. And a lot of other reasons it stands out, but that's when we probably got 2 inches of snow in like 4 hours, and it was gone in another 2 hours.
Texas.
So that's all I remember, but hey, it was pretty well lasted, and it started snowing last night before I went to bed, so at least we got to see the snow coming down. But
I went to bed early.
And guess how much they called for? Zero. Can you believe that? They said it wouldn't snow in Waco, Texas.
Weather men and women, weather people have the best job ever. They get paid.
Let's hear it.
To be mediocre. They get paid.
There was. Okay, you got it in. I'm proud of you.
You
don't have anything to say? Come on, sidekick.
It's spectacular.
All right,
Robin, Batman,
sidekick. You can call yourself what you want, but you're still a sidekick.
I will.
You are the Andy Richter to my Conan. You are the Paul Schaefer to my David Letterman.
You are the East Side Boys to my Little John.
You are the Steve Trevor to my Wonder Woman.
You are the backup band as I am Gwen Stefani.
That doesn't even make sense.
Sure it does.
No. All right. So we're talking about prescriptions. So we did a series. I'm sure everybody listened to all
Everybody.
150 of you.
1,000.
Listen to that.
150,000.
Press before you could play. Well, now guess what we're going to do?
We're going to play.
We're going to play.
We get to play.
And today we're going to talk about prescriptions. And I made a few notes on it and realized that this was going to be a multi-parter. So we're going to call this part 1. I don't know how many parts, but we're going to call it part 1.
Can we name it like the Fast and the Furious franchise?
Yeah, this is, well, I never understood that. The Fast and the Furious, what are they on, like
9.
9? And then they've got the spinoff one.
Yep. So I think this next one's called The Most Fastest and
Well,
Furious.
Here's the one I can't get. A movie came out from a video game, and it was called Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Great game, actually.
Okay. But it's called Final Fantasy. How can there be a Final Fantasy 2?
Finaliest fan.
Dodo, tell me, how can there be a Final Fantasy 2 if the first one was the final one?
So we're talking about part uno here.
We're talking about part 1. So let's get into prescriptions.
Let's do it.
So
enough banter.
Yes, because I know some of you, you know who you are, hate that. But let's talk about prescriptions. So in Press Play, PRESSPLAY, prescription is the second P, and it happens after we've done all this value build, but there's still more value build to do. There's still more stimulation to do. But when we talk about prescriptions, we're really talking about presenting the customer with multiple options.
Mm-hmm.
And I already think I know where we're going to spend most of our conversation on this.
Where's that?
In options.
Probably. But before we get into the options, which might just be part 1.
Could be.
We've got a saying here at Service Excellence.
Which is?
A prescription.
Sorry, I'm moving my footrest.
A prescription without a proper diagnostic is malpractice.
It's malpractice. That's right.
A prescription without a proper diagnostic is malpractice. And here's what that means to me. If you give a customer solutions and you haven't done a good job in the evaluation and the diagnostic phase, you have not earned the right to give them solutions and options and choices. And it happens all too often.
Yes,
we do skill evaluations. Think of it as a doctor. You're not going to go into the doctor and say, hey, I'm sick. And he's going to say, here's some drugs. He's going to do all this testing, ask you a bunch of questions. My doctor does.
Doctors are just technicians that work on people, Chris. Mind blown. Anyway, I know what you mean. Go ahead. Finish your point. Doctor's not going to come in just to tell you to do something without checking you out first, right?
X-rays, cholesterol, right? Looking with the weird little stethoscope and ask you a bunch of questions. A doctor is just a technician that works on people.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can talk anymore. I don't even know if I can look at you right now.
Well, please don't. So think about it, though. And this is what grinds my gears, Chris.
Come on.
I know you like that.
I do.
Watch out for the coyotes. So you go to the doctor. The doctor says, take 2 of these and call me in the morning, right? Or, here, try this. And usually that's the words that, hey, we're going to try this.
And if it doesn't work.
And if it's not better in a week, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor's hedging for a callback already. He's hedging. So in a week, it goes by, it didn't work. You call the doctor, hey, man, that didn't work. All right, well, come back in and see me again. We'll try to work you in the schedule. Not, you have priority, come in right now because it's a callback on me. It's, we'll try to work you in. So next time you go back in, I don't know about your doctor, but my doctor charges me again. Does he charge you? Does your doctor charge you?
Yes,
absolutely.
He does.
So doctors
are callback thieves.
They don't pay for their own callbacks. That's my surprise face if you're watching the video. Anyway, so you're right. When we do compare this part of Press Play a lot with going to the doctor. I mean, we could really do a lot of it that way, but in this case, especially because of your point, you go to the doctor, he's not going to walk in and say, okay, what's wrong? Got a headache. All right, well, here, you need this.
You've got Ebola. Take this.
Yeah, so normally what the doctor does, and they usually don't show you, but my doctor has a computer when he comes in, a tablet computer. Mm-hmm. And he comes in, and he's obviously connected to Wi-Fi everywhere. He comes in, and he starts going through a checklist of some sort. I don't know what it is, but what he's doing is he's putting in the symptoms, and it's spitting back possible diagnoses to him. But he's been doing it long enough that he goes through that checklist kind of automatically now. Mm-hmm. But he knows he's got to put the information in. So he still goes through that. And generally, a doctor is not going to prescribe something without giving you the reasons for prescribing it.
Correct.
Whether it's medication or some sort of course of treatment. And so we have to do the same thing. And that's why it's so important to use the checklist. And we talked about that in a previous episode, system diagnostic or system design. We got to go through our checklist because that ensures we do everything, but also it provides some third-party credibility to the customer because they don't know that our company put together that checklist. It could be anybody. But they think it's some sort of official thing, and that's good. We want them to think that, not because we want to deceive them, but because we want them to know that we're there to be thorough. And I got to tell you this.
Oh.
Yesterday,
Yes.
Ryan from the Happy Outlet, shout out to Jesse Olson and his team at the Happy Outlet. Ryan, on our session yesterday, talking about options, I said, okay, so we were putting together 4 options for this electrical troubleshooting scenario that we had. And I said, okay, well, what should inform your options? And Ryan goes, the checklist, because we got to out-thorough everybody.
Hashtag out thorough.
Shout out to you, right? But that's the reason we have a checklist. But what should inform the options? Here, pat on the back.
Thank you.
What should inform the options is that checklist and the red and yellow items on the checklist. And you got to make sure you got consistency in your company with what's red and what's yellow for the different trades. But also what informs your options is your conversation and your observations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we get to this point of what are we prescribing to the customer. And it's important to remember that you've got to give the right number of choices to a customer.
Mm-hmm.
And this might be where we spend a lot of time. And this is where I might get a little bit controversial.
Like,
well, that's just me.
Like halftime show controversial?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
So
hopefully there's no wardrobe malfunctions with you.
Too late. Don't look down. So we have our checklist that helps us. We got our answers from the questions we ask the customer, and then the answers we get just through observation, interaction. So we put together options. Now we can talk about a bunch of different ways to do this, but the way we teach most of our clients is 4 options. And even the word options can be controversial.
Yeah. Choices, solutions,
recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's some of you out there, you don't like that word.
What?
Recommendation. You don't like to tell your client what they should do. And that's where I get a little controversial. We'll get into that in a minute. Ooh. So let's just talk about a number real quick. So why 4? Do you want to answer that?
Sure.
Okay, well, let's say, why don't we give one solution?
Why don't we?
Yeah.
Because if they don't like it, we're screwed.
Yeah, it's a yes or no question, right? So we don't give one. And let's back up for a second. We've got to remember, too, that different from when you go to the doctor, generally when you go to the doctor and something's wrong, you're on the doctor's side, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the doctor.
Same team
because you want to get
figure
better.
This out.
And because you don't ever talk money with the doctor, right? So same team.
Mm-hmm.
What's a little different when you go into a house, especially for a tech with a repair problem. Now, maybe if a customer calls you out and you're a plumber and they're doing a remodel and they've got this great new faucet they want you to put in, this great new shower, whatever, or if you're an electrician, they want you to hang up new ceiling fans or put in some new lighting or something like that. Or if you're outside of the state of Texas, because no one in Texas would do this, maybe install a vehicle charging station. But
why?
But something like that, that's more positive.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going for, and maybe even a replacement of an AC system if they knew it was coming.
Right.
But generally on a repair call, let's talk about that in that light. Generally on a repair call, there is not a same team attitude with that. I classify it as a forced buy.
Not a fun buy.
Not a fun buy. Fun buy is we're going to go buy a new guitar, a new gun. We're going to take a trip. We're going to shop for this thing we want, not the thing we have to have and have to spend money on. So forced buys, going to the dentist to get a tooth fixed or something, or having to have your car repaired, having something go wrong in your house.
And just for Terry Barrett's information, T-Bear, shout out to T-Bear.
He hates hunting.
Who's in Alabama. A dentist is someone who works on your teeth.
Or in your case, your tooth. See what I did?
Boom.
Okay. We love you, T-Bear. And just note I didn't start it, but I finished it.
Shazam.
So a forced buy and not that we're going to force someone to buy, and you've heard us talk about this before. We're not forcing anybody to do anything.
No.
The customer is there by the very circumstances, which is they don't know how to fix it. So they are forced to pay somebody to fix it.
And we're the experts.
And we're the experts, right? So they have to call us. So generally a forced buy is you're paying an expert to do something. And by the fact that they're an expert implies that you have no idea what's going on with it. So naturally, two things occur. One is you're defensive because you don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is you fall back to the only decision criteria you know, which is how much money you have and how much it costs.
Right.
And so because we're already going into that like that, we have to do things in a way to make sure that, oh, what are you going to do? So we have to do things in a way that says that lowers the defensiveness as much as possible and also gives the customer the feeling that they have a choice. Wow, that's backwards on the video.
That's crazy.
But not on the video, but what we're seeing. Anyway, so let me run through this real quick, and I want you to add. We talked about the first one.
Okay, wrong.
That's a yes or no question. And in the forced buy, not the fun buy, in the fun buy, you ask a yes or no question, there's more of a chance they're going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
In the forced buy, there's more of a chance they're going to say no. And also, by the way, none of this is a silver bullet. This is all additive, the stuff we talk about.
Correct.
So we don't do one because it's a yes or no question. You say, okay, well, let's add two. Well, now we go to two, and what happens is another psychology kicks in that's not there with one. When you have one, it's yes or no. Another type of psychology, whatever, call it conditioning, comes in,
yep.
Which is, I can't buy the cheapest one because it doesn't last. I can't buy the most expensive because it's got stuff in it I don't need, and they're just trying to make money. Now, that's underlying. Customer may never say that to you, but I think all of us have been brought up. At some point, somebody's grandpappy has said that to them,
yeah.
Right? Also, you always get three bids.
Yep.
Right? There's that one. Okay, here's three. Okay, so now we think, okay, well, we've eliminated the yes or no question. We've eliminated the least expensive, most expensive, where there's really no choice. So we're going to add a third one, and we're going to give them a choice. So we still have can't buy the least, can't buy the most expensive. Wait a minute, I'm only left with one. What happens now? Yes or no question again. They can only buy the one in the middle because they can't buy the cheapest or most expensive. Now we get to 1, 2, 3, or 4. Oh, you're following my finger now.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be close when you talk or they won't hear you.
Your fingers were right in my face.
Now, so what about 1, 2, 3, or 4? Again, can't buy the cheapest, can't buy the most expensive. Okay, now in the middle, I have two legit choices because I've already said no to the cheapest and no to the most expensive.
Yep.
So now I can legitimately pick between the two. But let's throw the brakes on this real quick. Pump the brakes.
Skeet, skeet, skirt.
So we're pumping the brakes because without emotion, that holds up. But think about it this way. With the fun buy, what happens? Customer, you might have a budget in mind of something you want, or you've got a range, if not a hard budget, of something you want. And so you go to the store and you're looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you realize there's multiple options. And those options might be, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a cheaper version of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then here's upgrades
mm-hmm.
and downgrades you could do to
mm-hmm.
it, right? But how likely in a fun buy are you to downgrade?
Not very.
No, because, for instance,
gun.
Buying a new rifle.
Boom.
Okay? You're buying a new rifle. You go in and you think, well, I got a $1,500 budget to buy a new gun.
Okay.
That's a decent gun.
It's great. It's a great rifle.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to hunt with that for the rest of your life and pass it on to your kids as long as you take care of it. So you go in and your budget's $1,500 and you go into the gun counter at Cabela's and they've got the gun you want, or they've got a gun,
mm-hmm.
and the gun you looked at was like $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, they've got another gun that's normally $2,000, but it's on sale for $1,499.
Oh, I gotta have
so
it.
It's right under your budget.
Gotta have it.
And after tax is actually over budget. So what happens is you decide I'm going to get that. And then, hey, if I'm spending that much more money, I can't just throw it in the truck.
No.
I got to have a case.
Yeah, a Pelican.
A really nice Pelican case. It's got to be waterproof, right?
Yeah, because
moisture.
And you're going to walk through water with it.
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to have that. And it doesn't make sense to walk out of there with one box of ammunition because you got to sight it in and you got to get familiar with it. So you need two boxes.
Now you're at almost 2 Gs.
Yeah, but And if you want an extra magazine for it, so you don't have to worry about reloading the magazine, and I ain't talking about like a 20 round clip, just a little 3 or 4 round clip that you can put in it, so you don't have to reload maybe if you need it. So you got that. Oh, and you can't be expected to carry it. You got to put it on your shoulder, so you need a sling.
Dang, man.
I know, right?
I ain't going gun shopping with you. You're greedy.
Where do you think I got this from?
You're
probably gun shopping with you. Wait, hold on. Buying tacos with you. Me. Hashtag true. So that's kind of the way to it works with a fun buy. Now, force buy. Now you're going to you got a noise coming from front end of your car. You don't know anything about cars. Chances are, if you're doing a fun buy, you probably know something about it because you've researched it, right? So now we're going for our car, and there's a noise coming from the front end, and you realize, crap, you need a new Schniblin pin, cam shifter, and Helsinki smash rod.
And a flex capacitor.
That too. You can't do any of that on your own, so you got to have somebody do it.
Ugh.
Right? The first thing you're probably thinking is, well, what do I not need to do? What can I live without?
How can I get out of here
with as little as possible being spent, but make it safe? I think that's a normal thing for everybody. Now, that's the force buy. And so in both cases, they're not logical decisions, are they?
No.
They're emotional decisions, because in the fun buy, you get that endorphin rush from getting really excited and getting new stuff. And you get to talk about it, and other people are going to admire it. Well, then go into the force buy where you've got to buy all that stuff for your car. You don't know anything about it. And all of a sudden they're telling you that's going to be, you went in and you thought, okay, maybe $1,500, but now all of a sudden it's going to be $2,500. Now what do? Now you start making choices based on how you feel about it, and the fact that you never get to do anything fun because something like this always happens. And if you could just get ahead, or you could just do this, and whatever those negative emotions are, they come up, but it's not normally just about the thing.
Correct.
And so you got all those negative emotions. So that's the difference between the fun buy and the force buy. Now what happens is, and if we apply it to this, and let's say in a neutral buy, there's no emotion attached to it at all, we're in the middle. That's what this explains right here. This explains the neutral buy of being in the middle. That means I'm pointing to the board, and if there's 4, the 2 in the middle, that's usually what people will choose in a neutral buy. But in a fun buy, and I don't have any stats to back this up, I only have what I see and what I've experienced, which is, in my experience, if it's a fun buy, people are going to upgrade. They're probably going to choose most of the time option 2, maybe option 1. But in a force buy, people are going to most of the time choose option 3 or option 4. Again, that's just anecdotal. I don't have a survey or a study to cite for that. That's just what I've seen in the field. So what we have to do when we present is we have to do everything we can to handle those negative emotions. And that's why we talk about the value builds and all that kind of stuff. That's why we talk about using the checklist, being observant, the questions you ask the customer to put these things together. Now, the sale isn't made in the options.
No, it's the presentation of findings from the checklist, and then based on that, these are some solutions, recommendations, choices, whatever verbiage you want to use. These are the solutions that we've come up with that are best for you and your home.
That's right. And the way that you present each item that needs to be taken care of, and in this case, most of the time, it definitely red items and yellow items, and maybe some items that don't fit either description, but it might be something that the customer could use based on something you've seen or something they've said. And I think that probably happens more in plumbing and electrical than it does in HVAC. I think most of the time in HVAC, you can red or yellow everything. But think about this in electrical. Maybe they need USB outlets, but they don't realize they need them.
Right.
Or maybe it's not unsafe right now, but they could use it. Maybe they could use a night light that's, an automatic night light in the outlet in the hallway where the kid's bathroom is, or maybe an occupancy switch in the kid's bath. Those aren't really safety things necessarily, and we could argue about that another time. But bottom line is, your options should address red and yellow and anything else that you see that might make it work better, last longer, be safer, be more reliable. And my contention is your first option should be the best decision for that customer to make that happen. Based on your checklist, based on your observations, your question, your first recommendation solution option should be make it work the best, last the longest, be the safest, be the most reliable.
But that's the most expensive.
Oh no. Well, think about. I want to throw something out here. You and I have never talked about this.
Oh,
So
where do babies come from?
I don't think you're old enough for that.
The stork.
So think about this: when you go to the doctor and the doctor comes in, does the doctor start with the one you're most likely to choose, or does he start with the one that's the absolute best in his opinion?
Always the best in his opinion.
Exactly right, because he's the doctor, he's the expert.
Mm-hmm.
So why would we do anything different? And
We
so
shouldn't.
we shouldn't do anything different, right? So that's why that's there. And, for me as a professional expert consultant, that's going to be my recommendation, is to make it last the longest, be the safest, work the best, and be the most reliable.
And be the most efficient. Yep.
So to me, there's no, that's my professional recommendation, is going to be that one. And the way I'm going to present this is I'm going to talk clearly through every item on the checklist with the checklist visible. And I want to make something very clear here. I would never present my findings with pricing visible, not because I want to manipulate the customer or hold back anything. But remember, we're in a forced buy. Negative emotions are running this decision-making process here. And so what I want to make sure is they clearly understand the items that are going on with their system.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have prices visible,
they're just going to stare at the price.
that's all they're going to do. And they're going to start justifying price.
And they're not going to listen.
And what I say, they may not hear, or they will minimize it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just not going to have my iPad turned on with the stuff, with the options, or if I put together stuff, I'm not on writing. I'm just going to have that under the checklist. And again, I just want to reiterate, that is not to hide it from the customer,
because they're going to see it.
I'm going to show it to them. And heck, I might even email it or leave it with it. So that's not even an issue. It's that when I present, I have to do it in such a way so they clearly understand what's going on, because my job as the professional expert consultant is to tell them the status of everything, and to help them make the best decision possible for them.
Doctor doesn't show you a bunch of prices when he's talking about his best recommendation or course of action for your hip or your knee or your coronavirus or any of that stuff.
So he's not thinking about price. She's not thinking about price. It's always about what's the best long-term outcome for the patient. And that's the way we should approach this with systems. Now, I know that may be a little controversial to some of you, but hey, it's not our job to spend the customer's money. It's theirs. Our job is to make a professional recommendation. Their job is to decide whether they want to do it or not.
This is this portion, right? Number one option being the most expensive. Number four option being the least expensive. This is what I consistently see done incorrectly, even by service techs that know it's the correct way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called the pucker factor. The pucker factor. You pucker up. Oh gosh, $4,000. I'm here.
Ooh, what part puckers? I don't know if I want you to say.
I don't think I can say aloud. But you get where I'm going.
You wouldn't want to anger our sponsors.
No. This Pepto-Bismol. So that's the biggest point of contention of guys that I know that that's the correct way, but they still present the bottom option first because they're afraid of the money. Mm-hmm. And Brandon Cockrell, when he was interviewing for Service Excellence, he did a test run. And one of the things that he said, and I still remember this, you cannot judge what's in a customer's back pocket, nor can you spend what's in their back pocket like you would spend what's in yours.
That's right. And if you're putting your buying thoughts and process on a customer, you're doing it wrong.
You're wrong.
So what you've got to do is you've got to make the case to do what you recommend, because that's the best long-term solution. If the customer doesn't want to do it, that's up to them, not you. And that's why we have 4 choices for them. Because if they don't choose to follow my professional recommendation, there's 3 others I'm willing to do, but they're not the best.
Mm-hmm.
Just like your doctor. When I've used this example with the teams I train, and I might even have said something on here, but I had a knee problem a year ago and went to the doctor, and he goes, well, we looked at the MRI and you need to have surgery. You need to have that meniscus repaired. I'm going to refer you over to my guy, Brad, and he's the best knee guy around. He's going to take care of that. And he does a lot of the stuff that for the Baylor athletes, and other people come to him for this. And he studied under Dr. Andrews, the best knee guy in the world, et cetera. He's building it all up. But he's telling me, he's not even saying, here's your choices, Chris. He's saying, this is what you're going to do. And the reason you're going to do it is because it's, in my professional opinion, the best long-term outcome for you. And so I'm sitting there, and yes, there's a shock factor because he says, you're having reconstructive surgery on your knee pretty much.
All right.
And they thought it was pretty bad. They got in there and found out it wasn't as bad. Still hurts, but they found out it wasn't as bad. I still had to go through that. And when he said what I needed to have done, surgery, like anesthesia, you're out, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's disconcerting.
Yeah, because you're old.
Yeah.
You may not wake up.
So that's disconcerting. And so what the doctor, he knew it was going to shock me, but he just plowed on anyway. We got to the end. He goes, all right, so I'm like, hold on. Well, what else can we do? I mean, well, there's other things we can do, but you obviously want to make this, you don't want to have to deal with this again.
Right. Over and over.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what else can, well, I can give you a shot.
Mm-hmm.
We can go do physical therapy. And then we can do a course of anti-inflammatories, and we can see if we can get the pain to go away and for that thing to start building up some scar tissue or whatever the technical term for it was. I said, okay, well, what else? He goes, well, I can just give you a shot and you can take some anti-inflammatories. We can go from there. He said, but I wouldn't do any of that stuff. Okay. Well, tell me more about the surgery. So all of a sudden now I'm interested in what the other stuff, because he said I wouldn't do any of that. And then he says, you know what? If it was me, this is what I would do.
If it was my home.
The other thing he said was, let me show you something. And he stood up off his little stool, and he stood up and he stood up and locked both of his knees. Well, his left knee wouldn't go back all the way. You could still tell it wouldn't lock. He goes, I had a meniscus problem in my knee several years ago, and I never got it taken care of because I needed to work. So I just got the shots, took some anti-inflammatories. The pain went away. But now I have arthritis in this knee, and this knee won't straighten up all the way. So again, personal example and testimony. Boom.
Isn't that funny? Most service techs, like most plumbers I work with, have so much plumbing work to do around their own home, or HVAC guys.
Oh yeah.
Need duct or electricians.
Yeah.
The doctor had work to do on himself, but he didn't do it.
I mean, I think that's just a characteristic of a technical professional.
Yeah, for sure.
And so anyway.
What a funny observation.
Yes. That was a good one. I like that. So when we talk about prescriptions, we're talking about obviously building them from the checklist and the observations that you've made with the customer, the answers you've gotten to the questions. But then when you give the options you put together for the reasons we talked about. But the other thing is, I want you to start, my recommendation, start with your professional recommendation and tell the customer this is what they should do. Then ask them to do it.
I think probably part B.
Part 1B.
Plan B.
No, we don't want the plan B.
Second episode should be how to properly go through this.
Sure. Let me give you a hint, though, because the way to do it is not to lay out 4 and say, which do you want?
Ooh.
Because here's where it gets controversial.
Are you interested in one of these?
Let me ask you something, Chris. Is the customer qualified to choose the best option?
No, sir.
They're not. And if you think the customer is qualified to choose the best option, again, doing it wrong.
You're wrong.
And here's what I mean by that is they don't have the technical expertise to understand the longer-term impact. And even though you explain it to them, they may not get it, or they may not be thinking about it. They're still thinking about the money. So they are qualified to decide. Customer is not qualified to decide which solution is best long-term for them in that system. They are, on the other hand, qualified, and you're not qualified. They're qualified to decide what they can spend on it, not you. So don't even try to get involved in that game with them. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to handle objections to the money and stuff. That's on part 20, or maybe the next one. But here's the thing: we don't lay out all 4. Just to give you a taste of the next one we're going to talk about is we're going to present this first one here. I'm pointing at it. But we're going to present our professional recommendation because that's what we think the customer should do. It's the best long-term solution. And to do that, there's another principle we have called the prescription pyramid, which talks about awareness, stimulate that awareness, create a desire to eliminate the issue that you're making them aware of and stimulating, provide solutions to that issue, and then ask them to buy it.
Ask for the order.
And just like you said, you don't present a prescription until you've done the diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
You don't ask them to do something until you've built the value in it. Just like my doctor telling me all the benefits of doing the surgery, not compared to something else, but here's why you should do the surgery and here's why this guy should do it and this, that, not instead of doing this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he's given his professional recommendation. He's not even worried about the money because it's not his business what you spend on it. He's just there to give you the recommendation. And again, I know that some of you might be thinking, oh, well, that's I disagree with that and all that. Okay, it's your freedom to do that. But I'm telling you, after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of service calls, thousands and thousands I've done in my lifetime, and the other field skill evaluations I've done, I'm telling you, this is what the customers want. They want multiple recommendations, but they want you to tell them what you would do because they ask you to do it. And to support for, again, let me give you this. Was on a service call with a technician over the summer, went to a house. I've been training this guy for years.
Mm-hmm.
We go.
I remember this story.
He does a checklist, but he doesn't do options. Okay? He doesn't do options. And he goes to the customer and explains the checklist. He doesn't have anything written up or anything like that. The customer said, he goes through everything. Goes, you have any questions? She goes, yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Would it be better to replace it since it's so old? She asked that.
Mm-hmm.
After he answered that, we're not going to get into what the responses to that are. Would it be better to replace it? Because they won't come up because you're presenting options and you would present replacement of this particular HVAC system if it was an option, if it was your recommendation. So she says, is it better to replace it than just repair it?
Mm-hmm.
If we decided to repair it, how can we get 2 or 3 more years out of it? And if we decided that we just wanted to try to make it through the holidays and do something, what would that take? So what I see is she asked for option 1, option 2, and option 4. The only one she didn't ask is option 3,
mm-hmm.
which we can put in there. So the customers want this. They want you to make a professional recommendation. What they don't want you to do is come to you with a list of things that are wrong and ask them what they'd like to fix. That's not what the doctor does. The doctor doesn't say, that's not what the doctor ordered. I like it. The doctor doesn't say, hey, you got a knee problem. What do you want to do about it? The doctor says, you got a knee problem. It's this thing here. I can show you on the x-ray. I can show you on the MRI. I can show you by personal experience and my own testimony what happens from it. I can tell you what you're looking to run into if you don't do it. He's doing all those things to stimulate, and that's what you have to do. And then if they say, well, that's a lot of money, you handle the objection. That's for next episode. If you handle the objection and it truly is too much money and they've got to move down, then you move down. And again, there's a lot there that we'll talk about next time. But here's what you got to remember. As you started out, Chris, you can't present prescriptions until you've done a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
You diagnose by using a diagnostic checklist, red, yellow, green. You label everything red, yellow, green. You ask good questions through the evaluation portion. You make observations. And all of that goes into putting together your recommendation and other options, solutions, whatever you want to call them. And we want to do 4 because that's the optimal number for the reasons we talked about. And also, we want to stimulate. We want to use pictures, videos. We want to make a great case, personal examples, and testimony. That's what we have to do in the prescription phase. So next week or next episode, what we'll do is we'll talk about how we present and then talk about overcoming objections.
I dig that.
And again, and none of this, just so we're clear, none of this alone is a silver bullet. You look at all the press play, you look at all of the press before you play series, all of these things are additive. They give us that just that slight percentage better chance of helping the customer make a great decision.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's about. It's not about manipulation. It's not about hiding things. It's about knowing the situation we're going into and adapting and addressing that situation that we're walking into. That got kind of heavy.
That was a lot.
It's pretty awesome, though, I think.
It's hot fire.
No?
Emoji fire.
So, what's grinding your gears this week, Chris? Can't say snow.
Been a good week. Nothing's really grinding my gears.
Okay. Of course, neither one of us have been on an airplane in the last couple of weeks. So
Next week
yeah, next week. Next
and the
2
week
weeks.
after.
Next 2 weeks for me too. Well, I'm sure we'll have some things by then.
Yes.
So remember, as always, don't take homemade egg salad sandwiches on an airplane.
Or stinky food.
So there you go. That's your tip
Period.
of the week. All right. So Chris,
Yes.
next training classes.
It's going to be March 2nd through 4th. That's going to be the tech and sales. Both of those classes are about, well, not about, they're over halfway filled up. Go to our website, servextra.com, servextra.com. You'll be able to sign up and see what those classes are all about.
And if you have any questions, you can chat with T-Bear.
Yeah, he's right there. I see him.
I seen him.
Or if you want to get a hold of me directly, 254-723-7459, or Chris, CHRIS, at servextra.com. If you want to get a hold of Elmore,
254-733-7109. Do you know I've had the same phone number for 16 years?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, 254-733-7109 or Elmore at servextra.com. We'll continue this series next week with part
Do.
You got to have the little more Y in it.
Do. Yeah.
Chris, what do we do at Service Excellence Training?
We turn learning into earning.
Yes, we do.
Hooray.
Bye, everybody.